Hello and welcome to our lower body strengthening session. Today's session is a beginner focused workout and we're simply going to focus on strengthening the lower body. We'll be using all three of our sticks and a wall if you have one around available for use. And we're going to be starting on the floor with our short stick. So let's work on isolating the hip joint and find some rotation, which is going to be the fundamental movement of the hip that will strengthen our linear movements like our lunges and single leg deadlifts. So start on your back. We're going to hold that stick up towards the ceiling about shoulder width apart with the hands, grabbing overhand with that stick. And we're going to lift the right leg up towards that stick. So the right leg is going to be bent at 90 degrees. And then you're going to move that stick towards the right leg. Now we're going to find tension between this right leg and the stick. So the stick is going to push into the leg, or the upper body is going to be pushing down, and the leg is going to be pushing back up into that stick. So we want to find tension there, and we're going to ramp up that tension to about 40% of your max effort. That's also going to engage the abdominals, which we want to help stabilize the spine in order to isolate the hip moving and rotating the leg. So once you've found that 40% tension, keep that tension on the stick as you rotate internally with that right hip. So the leg is going to rotate internally. The hip and the spine are going to stay still. My foot is outside of that knee. Hold that right there. And then we're going to switch to external rotation. So continuing to press the leg into the stick, we're just going to sweep that foot across the body and hold. And then let's reverse that again, back to internal rotation. So we're going to be feeling the inner and outer parts of the hip working in order to rotate the leg from the hip joint. And then back over to external rotation. We want to isolate movement from the hip before we get into our heavy lower body strengthening work. And then let's go over to internal rotation again. Check in and make sure that you still got that 40% tension. Hold. And back over to external rotation. Cramping in the hip may be common if this movement is new to you. So if you cramp, just shake it out, release some of that tension, and get back into that movement. And we're going to do this 2 more times. Going over to internal rotation, notice that my thigh is rotating on its axis. So my knee and thigh is not actually sliding around on the stick. We're using the stick also as feedback and a point of contact. Let's go over to external rotation so that the thigh doesn't move around too much. Keep breathing here. Last one, internal, and hold. Trying to pull that foot outside of the body towards that stick. And external, hold. And then let's slowly come back center. Bring that right leg down. Give that hip some love. And then we're going to switch sides. So stick is still going to be right up, reaching towards the ceiling, and then that left leg is going to come up. We'll find that tension on the stick, pushing the leg into the stick, and that stick is pushing back into the leg. Once we found that 40% tension, make sure that left foot is flexed, and we're going to slide that foot outside of the hip over to internal rotation. Make sure you can breathe here. We want to keep that tension throughout the entire body. And then external rotation, sliding that foot across, rotating that upper leg bone within the hip joint. And then let's go back to internal rotation, pulling that foot outside of the knee and the hip. Hold. This is where you might get a really deep cramp if this is new, in the outside of that hip. And let's go to external rotation. The more you practice, the less cramping will occur. And then let's go 3 more. Internal rotation, isolating that rotation from the hip joint. So make sure the spine is not compensating to help rotate the leg. Back to external rotation, keep that tension. Make sure we're breathing. Last one, we'll go internal and hold. And external, hold. And then with an exhale, go ahead, come back center and bring that leg down. All right, so let's come up off of that floor and we'll find some hip movement standing. So we'll grab both of our long sticks. we're gonna work on some stick slides. So we're gonna work some hip abduction and some hip flexion. So we're gonna start in a tall standing position. Sticks are gonna be at 10 and 2 o'clock. So if 12 o'clock is right in front of you, we're going out towards 10 and 2 with the bottoms of the stick angled in towards you. We're gonna hold those sticks at about chest height, and then we're gonna drive the sticks down into the floor at that same 40% tension. Once we found that tension down into the floor with the sticks, let's shift your weight to the left leg and lift the right leg up low in front of you. So we want that left hip and leg staying nice and active even while we're balancing in this position. So left leg is gonna stay straight. Glutes on that left side are engaged as well. And then we're gonna push the outside of that right foot, opening that hip and leg into the right stick. Make sure as you open that the body doesn't turn with you. You want to keep that left hip pulling back and the chest facing straight ahead. Drive that left stick into the floor a little bit more so you can feel tension on that left side. At the same time, we're pushing the right foot into that right stick at 40% tension. And then we're going to keep that tension as you slide the leg up, driving that knee up towards your right armpit. We're going to hold here, trying to get that leg up as high as you can while still pushing out into that stick. Then we're slowly going to slide that leg back down and take a breath. We're going to keep that leg attached if you can. And then we're going to increase that tension to 50%, slide that leg up. So now we've got more tension, which may actually help you lift the leg higher. And then slowly slide that leg back down. We're working for slow, controlled movements with all of these exercises. Now let's see if we can increase that tension to 60%. So we're pushing those sticks down even harder, pushing out into that stick even harder as we slide back up. Holding at the top. Slowly sliding that leg back down. Take a breath. We're gonna do 2 more. Let's increase to 70% tension. Now we're working really hard to slide that leg up. The hips are gonna be getting tired here, but after these 2, we're gonna take a breath and slowly slide that leg back down. We're gonna keep that 70% tension. Maintain that 70% here and slide the leg up one last time, pushing out into the stick. As high as you can with that knee, hold. Keep pushing out into that stick as you slide the leg down, and then don't crash to the floor. Bring the leg back in front. Slowly lower with control, and then finally release that tension. So we'll shake out those hips and legs, shake out the shoulders in that grip, and we'll reset for the left side. So again, from that tall standing position, sticks are gonna be at 10 and 2 o'clock. If this is too wide for you to lift that leg without turning your body, you can bring those sticks forward a little bit more. Just keep pushing out into that stick with that leg as you slide up. So with our sticks out, bottoms angled towards you, we're grabbing at chest height with those sticks. We're gonna lift the left leg up, finding that 40% tension. Make sure we're nice and tall on that right hip. Okay, I'm gonna show you from the side. So we wanna try not to bend this supporting knee. We wanna try not to open that supporting side or sit out in that right hip. We're gonna stand up nice and tall on that right hip. Maintain that tension on the sticks as you open that left leg to the left stick. We've got 40% tension here as you slide the leg up, driving that left knee towards your armpit, and hold. Nothing in the body moves except that leg. And then slowly bring that leg back down. Try to keep it off the floor if you can. Let's increase that tension to 50%. And slide that leg up, pushing out into that stick at 50%. Hold. And then let's slowly slide that leg back down. Let's increase to 60% tension. Drive into the floor with those sticks. Keep that tension as you slide that left leg up. Pulling that right hip back. Hold. Slowly coming down. These last 2 are ramping up to 70% tension. Drive down even more into the floor with those sticks. Press back into that stick to slide the leg up. Knees driving up towards that armpit. Hold. Slowly lower back down. Stand up a little taller. Keep that 70% tension as we slide up. Last one. Push into that stick. Hold at the top. Keep breathing. And slowly come back down. All right, and rest. Let's release that tension, shake it out, and we're gonna move on to a single leg deadlift. So notice how when we're doing these single leg movements, we are not balanced, but we are balancing. So I want you to think about single leg work as not necessarily as a state of being by balanced, more as an action word, a verb of balancing. So even though I'm kind of shaking around here and my body's trying to figure out how to maintain that balancing position or movement as I slide up and down, it's always going to be changing. So when we're doing single leg movements, if that bottom foot is wobbling around, if that knee is going back and forth between straightening and bending, your body is figuring it out, and it's figuring out how to shift your weight ever so slightly to remain on one leg. So keep that in mind as we go into our single leg deadlifts now. So you're going to face away from your wall, and I want you to be just a couple feet away from it. So we're not gonna go too far away from that wall. And as you get more comfortable with the movement, then you can progress a little bit further. So we're starting in a tall standing position about 2 to 3 feet away from the wall. Sticks are at 11 and 1 o'clock, and we're holding them at chest height. Now we're going to drive the sticks into the floor at 50% tension and lift that left leg off the floor. So again, we're on that single leg, finding our stability. We're balancing in this position before we go into that single leg deadlift. So that right foot is working hard, and then we're going to reach the left leg up and back as we reach the right hip up and back and find a single leg hip hinge. Now, because we're close to the wall, that left leg is not going to be super straight, right? It's going to be more bent than straight. Our focus is that standing hip. So we're reaching that standing hip back. That standing leg is soft, and we're pulling the chest down through the arms without overarching the spine. So keep that 50% tension driving down on those sticks. Hold this position. I want you to also push that left foot into the wall. So we're finding tension in this single leg hip hinge from all angles. You're gonna push off the off the wall with that left foot and pop back up to that hip flexion position. If that felt really comfortable, we're gonna do that again. If you think that you can extend that back leg a little bit more, walk a little further away from the wall incrementally, and then we'll find that hip hinge again. So now that the back leg is a little more extended, if you've chosen to walk out, we can focus on what the back leg is doing. Let's turn the toes down towards the floor so that the back hip is not open. And let's focus on reaching those sticks forward in opposition to that back leg. So we're pushing the back leg into the wall as the sticks lean forward, and we're gonna hold here. And then we're gonna push off the wall, come back to that hip flexion. Let's increase that tension to 60%. Go back to that hip hinge. Progress if you need to, regress if you need to by moving further or closer back to the wall. Keep pressing down into the floor with that 60% tension. Left foot is pushing into the wall at 60% tension. Hold and push off to come back up. Let's do that 2 more times, this time increasing to 70% tension as you reach back to your hip hinge. Push into that wall. Now we really want to make sure that this supporting hip is loaded. So we want to make sure that the weight, not all of your weight is on the stick. So if you want to double check, you can slide your hands down on the sticks an inch or 2 and see if you can lift them up. Now, as you place the sticks back down, keep your weight in that supporting leg and then push off the wall to come on up. Right? Let's do that one more time. Maintain that 70% tension. Reach back to that wall. We're in that single leg hip hinge. If you want to double check and make sure you're not leaning on the sticks too much, lift up. As you bring the sticks down, try not to shift your weight onto them. Just press them into the floor. And push up. All right, let's bring that leg down, shake it out, and we will switch sides. I'm going to show you from this angle. so you can get a closer look at that supporting hip. So we'll start a little closer to the wall. Each side may be a little bit different with how far away you want to be. So we'll start a little bit conservatively and work our way out. So we'll go tall standing position. Sticks are at 11 and 1 o'clock, holding them at sternum height. You're going to drive down at 50% tension. Lift that right leg up. Make sure that left foot is working to stabilize you in this position. And then reach those hips and that right leg back into your single leg hip hinge. So don't let that right leg push you too far forward. That left foot is almost pushing down into the floor in opposition to that right leg pushing back, which then in turn is going to load more of this left hip. Keep pushing into that wall for 3, 2, 1, and push up. Let's progress or regress as needed. We're going to increase that tension to 60%, and we're going to reach back to that single leg hip hinge, making sure that we're not leaning too far on those sticks. Push that right leg back into the wall. In turn, that left foot and hip are going to drive into that floor even more. Keep going for 3, 2, 1. Push off the wall to bring your hips underneath you. Try to keep that leg up if you can. We're going to increase to 60% tension as we reach back into that hinge. Make sure that this back hip is not lifted. We want the toes turning down towards the floor and that right hip turning down towards the floor. Really loading that left hip. Drive for another 3, 2, 1. Come on up. Let's increase to 70% tension. Drive those sticks into the floor, but make sure that doesn't prompt you to lean on the sticks. We're going to double check here. So we're pressing down at 70% tension with the sticks and the legs, and let's double check and see if you're not leaning on those sticks. Try to lift and hold. As you bring the sticks down, try not to shift your weight onto them and push off the wall. Maintain that 70% tension. Let's do that one more time. Reach those hips up and back and that right leg up and back. Nice and comfy in that left hip. Really loading up that left hip. Double check and lift those sticks up if you can. As you bring the sticks down, try to keep your weight on that left hip and drive off the wall and release. Nice job. All right. Let's shake it out, take a breath, and we're going to get into some lunging patterns. So we're going to do a static lunge or our split stance monkey hang. So we're going to start with the right leg in front, left leg behind. And this is going to be a pretty small lunge stance. So we don't want to make this position really, really long. We want both of those feet relatively underneath you. The sticks are going to go at 3 and 9 o'clock next to the hips, just a few inches away. Then you're going to reach up towards the top with a rope grip and some slack in the elbows. We're going to press down starting at 70% tension. So we're really going to use the sticks and your upper body to help get you into and out of your lunge. So we're starting off with a lot of tension, and then we're going to work our way to less tension, meaning that the lower body is going to be doing most of the work. So right now, we're driving the sticks down at 70%. The upper body is going to be taking a lot of that load. So you're going to sink those hips straight down into a lunge. Allow those arms to lift, but keep pressing those sticks into the floor. Almost like you're hanging on the sticks and the legs are just floating. You're going to pull yourself up by driving the sticks into the floor at 70% to pull yourself back up. Now let's lighten that load to 60% tension. So now we're pushing with a little less tension, and as you go down, that means that the lower body is going to have to take more weight. As you go into this lunge, make sure you're not leaning too far forward. We want the hips to be right underneath the shoulders and that knee to be right underneath. So if we're in a long position here, that knee is going to be behind, which is not necessarily incorrect, but we want to really focus on the quads and loading the hip of that back leg. Now pull yourself up with that 60% tension. So we're going to focus on a classic lunge, just keeping that knee underneath that back hip. Let's Lighten the tension to 50% as you slowly lower yourself down. So now the lower body is taking even more load. And pull yourself up at 50% tension. Good, and hold. We're gonna do 2 more, lightening that load to 40%. Now, if it gets to be too much for those legs and you feel yourself compensating and unstable, then keep more load and tension in the upper body. So we're at 40% with the upper, which means 60% is the lower body working. Lowering down into your lunge. Push down with those feet and pull up slightly to come on up. We're gonna do this one more time. Lightening that tension again to 30%. This time the lower body's taking 70% as you go down. Once you're in this lunge, if this feels good, let's see if we can lighten the load all the way so that you're lifting the sticks straight off the ground. Hold. And then place the sticks down and come on up. Nice job. Let's switch sides. I'm going to show you from this angle. Okay, so now the left leg is going to be in front, right leg is in back, narrow-ish lunge stance. We want those sticks to be at 3 and 9 o'clock, just a few inches outside the hips. We're grabbing up top with some slack in the elbows. Just know that if the elbows are more extended at the top, the lunge is going to be a little bit smaller. And if that's the progression that you're choosing for today, then that's perfectly fine, and eventually you'll work down into a deeper lunge. We're starting off right away with 70% tension. So drive those sticks down into the floor at 70%, meaning that the upper body is doing most of the work here. You're lowering yourself down into your lunge. Keep driving those sticks into the floor. Make sure that the ribs, hip, and back knee are stacked. Then you're gonna drive down at 70% to pull yourself up. Release some of that tension to 60%. So now the upper body is taking 60% of your weight and the lower body is taking 40 as you go into your lunge, sinking straight down. And then drive those sticks into the floor, 60% to help pull yourself back up out of it. Let's lighten to 50% tension. So we've got 50-50, 50 with the upper body, 50 with the lower body. Slowly lower yourself down. This is a really good time to check in and make sure we're not compensating by leaning the hips back or forward, making that stance too big. We really want to load up that back leg. You want those quads and hip to be on fire. Pull yourself back up. Now we're going to use even less tension, 40% tension with that upper body, meaning the lower body is taking more. Deep breaths here, push down to come back up. And let's release even more tension. We're working with that 30%. If you feel like you can go a little bit lower, slide those hands down a little bit more. Lower into that lunge. If this feels really good at the bottom, first make sure you're nice and stable and balancing in this position. Try to lift those sticks straight off the ground. Hold. Slowly bring the sticks back down and push down with those legs to come on back up. All right, so let's shake it out. Put one of those long sticks away. We are finishing up with some nice active stretching. We're gonna do our ninja flow and the hips are gonna go against your wall. So you're gonna be facing away from the wall just about a foot with those feet nice and wide. So wider than shoulder width, toes facing straight ahead. Stick is gonna go inside that left foot, right at 9 o'clock. You're gonna reach up and grab that stick at about eye or top of the head level. And then you're going to simply reach those hips back towards the wall and soften those knees. So I'm in a light hip hinge here. We're gonna stretch out the hips. We're gonna stretch out the spine and the shoulders. So you're going to reach the right arm across and grab the stick with the thumb pointing down. So I'm already a little rotated in my spine. As you do that though, make sure that the right hip doesn't come off of the wall. So the wall is gonna be there to help make sure those hips stay nice and square and stable. So we're gonna lengthen that stick by driving the right hand down and the left hand up at 30% tension. Then you're going to slide and shift to the right, straightening that left knee, keeping both hips on the wall, and look up. Make sure that that tension remains on the stick. Right arm is pushing down, left arm is sliding up. Take a breath here. And shift over to the left. No matter which side you're bending, which knee you're bending in this movement, try not to let that knee collapse in. We're gonna open those knees out. And again, shift over to the right. Breathe in this rotation. And shift over to the left. Make sure both hips stay on the wall. Last one, pull that stick apart as you shift to the right and hold. And shift to the left. You're gonna release that right arm, soften both knees again, and then bring those hips underneath you to come on out of that position. Let's switch sides. I'll show you from the front. So we'll go just about a foot away from the wall. Wide stance, stick is gonna be right inside that right foot at 3 o'clock. We're holding at eye level or a little bit higher. And then you're going to shift those hips back, softening the knees into a light hip hinge. Reach the left arm across with the thumb pointing down. Make sure that you're not lifting that hip away from the wall though. And we're gonna pull that stick apart. So my left hand is driving down, my right hand is pulling up. Keep that tension on the stick as you shift and slide to the left, looking up towards the ceiling and hold. And then shift to the right, looking back down towards the floor, pulling that right knee out. Pull that stick apart again and shift to the left. Make sure both hips remain solid on the wall. And shift back to the right. Looking down to the floor. Pull that stick apart again. 30% tension as you shift to the left. Hold. And shift back to the right. Release that left hand, slowly shift the hips back center, and come on up. Very nice job today. We definitely worked the hips and that lower body a lot. I hope you enjoyed this session and that your lower body is feeling great and worked, and I will see you next time.